Scatology was recorded totally on a Fairlight, which was new to us because a few people like Yes had them,
Kate Bush.
but it was unknown for somebody in an underground band to use them, and it certainly is a great experience for me because it's a totally new way of writing and a totally new way of using sound, and in many ways that instrument has never been replaced. It did stuff that was unique then, and it's sort of unique today, although you can do it in different ways. It was a great tool, and what we always, from a sort of technical side, we're always looking for tools that will do things that no one's done before. We take great delight in kind of taking technology that's designed to do one thing and using it in a totally opposite way and making it do something that the inventors never imagined was possible. But in fact, it makes sounds that are totally new for people to be stimulated by. So that was the great thing for me, was to do that and make songs that were totally made up of the sound of a Polaroid camera, ejecting the picture, combined with a music cassette of a 12-year-old boy being hit with a stick. And there was one song that was that was the only sound I think that was in it pretty much. So bands like Yes and Emerson, Lake and Palmer were using a Fairlight on stage basically just to play strings or drum sounds, and just because they didn't want to buy an orchestra, they didn't want to take an orchestra on tour. But as soon as you start putting in sounds that are taken from life, from the real world, you can, as make music. Everybody makes it now, but in those days it was totally new.
It was an oral equivalent of William Burroughs' cut-ups in a way. Yeah. Just a reservoir of stuff that I'd built up since leaving Psychic TV, and it was sort of some of the stuff that I had resented giving to Genesis because we'd get no credit for it. So
partly the concept was scatology was about finding gold in shit, really.
It was alchemy. It was
There's the alchemical aspect of it, but also the fact that one person's shit could be gold for another person and vice versa, you know what I mean? It's just taking that whole area and looking at it in different ways.
And this is where the symbol for COIL is a black sun. Mm-hmm. We've changed it several times, but it's always a black sun, and that's the alchemical part, and the magical thing is, when you go into this, it's called Nigredo. No, I don't know. Yes, Nigredo, and all these really are sort of to do with sort of pestilence and the spoiler and murderous tenderness of wolves and panic.
Attentie alstublieft. Het museum gaat over 15 minuten sluiten. U wordt verzocht zich naar de uitgang te begeven.
No, it's been remastered.
Just remastered.
Yeah. It's basically the same record, but the sound. It's going to be 15 minutes of different languages now.
Well, let's make this into
Aleister Crowley. Well, he's called the wickedest man in the world, but that's by the newspapers, so dismiss that completely.
He was an English eccentric.
He started off very rich. He inherited a large amount of money and went to Cambridge, but dropped out of college and deliberately became a transgressive
academic
person. He decided to seek out and explore new sins, and to scandalize the society he found himself surrounded by, which he thought was awful and hypocritical and repressed. And his technique for doing this was using magic, sexual magic, and drugs, and anything that he could, and Occidental magic, and what he'd learnt from the East, the Orient. He travelled in the East, and he brought this back and tried to start a sort of new church, as it was, the Church of Thelema, and he had disciples, and he was mad. He was deluded. He was a wife beater. He became addicted to drugs, but at the very core of him, he was an incredibly brave person because he lived his dream. He lived the vision that he lived. He had a spark in him that was divine, and he acknowledged that every person had this. He said every man and every woman is a star. What he meant by that was that we should all aspire to be superhuman, not in a Nietzschean sense, although he was aware of that, but to live life to their absolute potential and not care a jot for what anybody else thought. If you wanted to dye your hair green and make love in the middle of the street with a dog, if the dog was obliging, then this was okay, But it's the bravery and the persistence throughout his life and all the things he went through. His magical motto when he joined the Golden Dawn was "Perdurabo," which means "I will endure," and he did. One of our phrases, yes, persistence is all. This is deliberately chosen. This is another magical motto that one of the OTO, one of Crowley's church followers had, and I think it's so relevant to COIL now, and to myself, and to the people who we're working with. We persist throughout whatever. We're not interested in trends, not interested in fashions. We're not interested in. We may dip into. We may be like a particular thing, but they come and they go. Whereas we just continue doing what we do, and it all washes over us. We have a pure core that's very, very strong, I think.
It was the beginning, really, of AIDS, and a lot of our friends were beginning to die, and the single that we took from that record was the first to donate money to AIDS charities, as far as we know. And the video for "Tainted Love" was a big. Caused a big outcry in America because they felt that people were taking advantage of AIDS victims, but at the same time it was totally the opposite, and it's now in the Museum of One Night in New York.
Everyone around us, a lot of our friends and sort of quite important associates were dying or had friends who were dying, and we knew we saw the consequences of what was happening with what didn't even have a name. It was called GRID back then. GRID. Yeah. And we decided, okay, this is happening, but let's explore death in all its aspects, and some of these are quite celebratory explorations of death. Like we went to Mexico, and there they have huge bands and Festival of the Dead. Yeah. So that's really the Death album. And we showed him that, and there was a particular image of a penis with about 30 piercings through it.
Being pulled apart?
Yeah, being pulled apart. Oh, and another one, yes, with the penis being split in half. Split. And both of those he acknowledges as that's where the pinhead image came from. Mm-hmm. And also some of the images that we had on our wall also appear in the film. So, not blaming Clive Barker, but we were kicked off the film for being too scary. They wanted emotional, orchestral music. And bleep me out now if you need to, but this is when we realised that Hollywood was full of cunts. And we don't want to engage with it.
Yeah, that was the first lesson we had in the way that Hollywood works. At the moment, Hollywood is just as with the same with music videos. It's in the grip of a Tommy Hilfiger phenomenon. And all films, basically, a large proportion of Hollywood films, just want to get you to go to the films because it has some cute young star in it, and the emotions are from a cereal packet.
Yeah, it's essential that we do everything we possibly can with our art to destroy this homogeny that is engulfing the whole bloody world. Yeah. Well, this is an EP that we're releasing on Eschaton. It's going to be Eschaton 33. And it's by a guy called Ivan Pavlov, who's a Russian living in Stockholm, and he has a group called Sun, and it's spelled COH, which is the Cyrillic Russian language. And there's 4 tracks on it. Peter did one, which is a version of Meet Murder My Angel by Soft Cell. And Ivan's done a horrible retros 80s disco song, but he's done it in an incredibly good, interesting way. Yeah. Digital, but not Mego type digital. There's a track called Prayer for Russell, which is by Steve Thrower,
who used to be in
COIL, yeah. Which is a really good track, in memory of one of his favourite male porn stars. And a track that I did called Health and Deficiency, which is, I reached an area of myself, I found a persona in myself that I don't really want to ever bring out again, because it
You're still carrying the scars.
Drove me mad for about a month afterwards, seriously. So it's interesting.
I sometimes think that people who are conventional musicians must think that we're appalling, because the music we play is almost unlistenable, but in a good way. And generally speaking, always some people walk out if they weren't expecting, if they don't know anything about COIL. But for the people that do know about COIL and that appreciate it, they're pinned to the chair or pinned to the spot where they're standing, and they're totally overcome by the experience. I kind of feel embarrassed, but at the same time, I think it's good.
My take on what we're doing in performance at the moment is there's so much noise and so much visual and oral pollution, posters everywhere and television and radio and absolutely so many records that, I could puke. What we want to do is create a sonic barrage in which people cocoon themselves for an hour, and sort of like as white noise, will mask all the other sounds. In some way, this is what we want to do with the sound and the vibrations and the light.
It would be quite difficult to sit in a COIL concert and think of a Missy Elliott song or a Boston song, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. It's a way of concentrating people's minds on it's putting people in touch with themselves, hopefully, through sound and light.
I thought Sandra plays analog equipment, so the position of a knob is very critical to what comes out of the speakers. I mainly mix and do some vocals, and also play stuff on the Macintosh PowerBook.
More than half of it's live now.
Yeah.
As I say, the basic structure is pre-organized, but the actual form that it takes and the sound that comes out is spontaneous.
Completely and also completely changeable. It's not a case of sort of DJs fading up and down. We have so many setups that we can feed in, depending on how we feel, and we will talk to each other on the stage, and say, look, let's take it in this direction or that direction. But Thypal Sandra is a classically trained musician and an electronic musician expert. Simon can play, we can play, and I can sing and perform now. So
there are some John Cage pieces we're very good at, aren't there?
Something. 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 Something.